All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that could be a real game changer in the energy sector: carbon capture and storage. It's been making headlines, and one of you even sent in an article about enterprise products partners and how they're getting involved in this whole carbon capture thing. So we're going to break it all down for you.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting case study. Enterprise Products Partners is a big player in the traditional oil and gas pipeline business, but now they're dipping their toes into this whole new world of carbon capture.
Right. So first things first, the article you sent, it was from the Motley Fool, right?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. The Motley Fool, they've been around forever, like since the 90s, and they have a pretty solid reputation in the finance world, so we know we're dealing with credible information.
Definitely. The Motley Fool's known for their thorough analysis and, reliable insights.
So Enterprise Products Partners, they're an MLP, which I know can sound a little jargony, but it basically means they're structured in a way that gives them really stable cash flow, which is super important when you're talking about funding these massive pipeline projects. The downside for investors, though, is those K-1 forms come tax season.
Yeah, those can be a bit of a headache. But on the plus side, they've been increasing distributions to their investors for over 2 decades. And with a dividend yield right now of 7%, it's easy to see why people are interested.
Wow, 7%. That's pretty sweet, especially these days. But what's really fascinating to me is that they're not, completely ditching oil and gas. Instead, they're taking what they already have, their pipeline network, their expertise, and they're using it to get into this whole new carbon capture market.
It's actually a pretty smart move. They're diversifying their portfolio, hedging their bets, and they're potentially tapping into a market that's, well, get this, projected to be worth $3 trillion, that's trillion with a T, to $5 trillion annually by 2050.
Wait, did you say trillions? That's mind-blowing. But I'm assuming that's a global estimate, right? We're not just talking about the U.S. here.
Right, that's a worldwide estimate. But even so, those numbers are pretty staggering. It suggests that we could be seeing a major shift in the global energy landscape in the coming decades.
Okay, so how's Enterprise planning to get a piece of this massive pie? The article mentioned a specific project, right?
Yeah, they're teaming up with Occidental Petroleum to develop a network of pipelines to transport captured carbon dioxide, not oil or gas, to a sequestration hub in southeastern Texas.
Hold on, sequestration hub. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. Basically, it's like a giant underground storage tank for CO2. The key is getting the CO2 there safely and efficiently, and that's where Enterprise's expertise in pipelines comes in. This specific hub is called the Bluebonnet Sequestration Hub, and it's strategically located near the Houston Ship Channel.
So they're using an existing industrial hub and turning it into a CO2 storage facility. That's pretty clever. But why the Houston Ship Channel specifically?
It's all about access. There are already tons of potential CO2 sources in that area, all sorts of industrial activity. And remember, this isn't just one pipeline. It's going to be a whole network. And Enterprise will be earning fees based on how much CO2 they transport.
So the more CO2 they move, the more money they make. Interesting. But, is this just a risky gamble? Or are they, really serious about this whole carbon capture thing?
Well, they've got a pretty impressive track record. Right now they have $6.7 billion worth of projects in progress, and that's not even counting their recent acquisition of midstream, which was almost another $1 billion. So they're definitely putting their money where their mouth is.
Okay, so they're not messing around. But is this more of a defensive move, like they're trying to diversify away from fossil fuels because they know they're on the decline?
Right.
Or is it more of a strategic play, like they want to be the leader in this brand new market?
That's a tough question. It could be a little bit of both. They're definitely leveraging their existing strengths, but they're also positioning themselves as a major player in a market that could be absolutely enormous.
It's like they're trying to play both sides of the energy transition, which is a pretty interesting strategy. Makes you wonder if other, traditional energy companies are thinking along the same lines.
Definitely something to watch. But I think the bigger question here is, can a fossil fuel giant actually reinvent itself as a climate solution provider?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It really makes you think, can they have it both ways? Be a climate champion while still making money from fossil fuels?
That's a bit of a tightrope walk, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it brings up those bigger questions about, is carbon capture really the answer? Is it a sustainable solution or just a way to kind of kick the can down the road and keep relying on fossil fuels for longer?
It's a debate that's not going away anytime soon. But putting that aside for a moment, I am kind of impressed that Enterprise is taking this step. I mean, it shows a real shift in thinking for a company so deeply rooted in oil and gas.
It does make you wonder who else is watching this and maybe thinking, maybe we should get in on this too.
Yeah, like which companies are best positioned to benefit from this whole carbon capture trend?
Well, companies that already have the necessary infrastructure in place, I'm talking about pipelines, storage facilities, those kinds of things, they've got a head start for sure.
Makes sense. They're already halfway there.
Exactly. And then beyond just the physical infrastructure, you need the expertise to handle and manage CO2. Companies with experience in that area are going to be in high demand, like Occidental Petroleum, for example. They've been doing carbon injection in oil fields for years, so they already have a leg up in this market.
So bottom line, if you're listening to this and trying to make sense of it all, what should you be taking away from this? What should investors be thinking about?
I think the key takeaway is that you got to stay ahead of the curve. The energy sector is changing rapidly, and companies like Enterprise, they're the ones leading the charge. This move into carbon capture, it could be a sign of where the whole industry is headed.
It's a good reminder that what might seem risky today could be the next big thing tomorrow, right? You got to keep your eyes open and be ready to adapt.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the energy sector either. Think about all the ripple effects this could have. What other industries might be impacted by this push for carbon capture?
Oh, that's a good point. I'm not sure, though. What do you have in mind?
Well, the tech sector, for one. They could play a huge role in developing and implementing even more advanced carbon capture technologies. That could open up a whole new world of investment opportunities.
It's amazing how it all connects, right? One innovation leads to another, and suddenly you have a whole new landscape. It's not just about one company or one project. It's about understanding how all these developments are shaping the future.
You've got it. Seeing those connections, those potential implications, that's what sets apart a savvy investor, being able to look beyond the headlines and think about the long-term effects.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential, the players, the ripple effects. But let's come back to that big question about sustainability. Is carbon capture really a solution to climate change? Or is it just giving fossil fuel companies a way to buy themselves more time?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And there are some really strong arguments on both sides of that debate.
Okay, so let's hear those arguments. What are the main points people are making?
Well, on one side, you have the folks who are really bullish on carbon capture. They argue that it's a crucial tool, especially for industries where getting rid of fossil fuels completely just isn't feasible right now. They point to things like power plants and industrial facilities, even capturing CO2 directly from the air as areas where this technology could make a big difference.
So they're saying it's a necessary bridge to a cleaner future.
Right. But then you have the critics who are a lot more skeptical. They say carbon capture is expensive, energy intensive, and they worry it's just a way for fossil fuel companies to greenwash their image and delay the inevitable switch to renewables.
So they see it as a distraction from the real solutions.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. And they also bring up the risks involved,
Yeah.
What happens if that captured CO2 leaks out of storage? That would kind of defeat the whole purpose. And they worry that focusing on carbon capture will pull resources away from investing in and scaling up renewable energy, which they see as the real answer.
Okay, so we've got two very different perspectives here. It's a complex issue, that's for sure. What's your take on all this? Based on your understanding of the technology and the industry, where do you land in this debate?
It's a tough one. I mean, it's not a simple answer, is it? Carbon capture, at least as it stands right now, it's not a silver bullet. The technology is still, it's still pretty young, and there are definitely challenges, but I don't think we should just dismiss it out of hand. It could have a role to play, especially in the near term as we work on transitioning to a more fully renewable energy future.
So not a magic solution, but maybe one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. It's about having a diverse toolkit. We need to be investing in renewables, improving energy efficiency, and exploring these new technologies like carbon capture. It's not an either-or situation.
It's about using every tool in the toolbox.
Exactly. And going back to enterprise product partners, it'll be really interesting to see how this whole bet on carbon capture plays out for them. Will it be a financial success? Will it actually move the needle on emissions? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It's a bold move, that's for sure. And I think for anyone listening who's thinking about, investing in this space, it's a good reminder to do your research. Really dig into the companies, understand the risks, and then, weigh those against the potential rewards.
Couldn't agree more. This is it's a complex landscape, and it's changing all the time, so you really need to be informed.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with something to think about, maybe a bit of a different perspective. We've talked a lot about the potential downsides of carbon capture, the costs, the risks, the whole idea that it might just be delaying the inevitable shift away from fossil fuels. But what if we try to look at it a different way? What if instead of seeing it as a necessary evil, we start thinking about it as an opportunity?
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
What if instead of just burying all that captured CO2 underground, we could actually find ways to use it, make it into a resource, something valuable?
Now, that's an interesting idea. And it's not as crazy as it sounds. I mean, we're already seeing some of that happening. CO2 is being used in enhanced oil recovery to make building materials, even to produce fuels.
So instead of treating it as a waste product, we could turn it into something useful.
Exactly. And who knows what other applications we might come up with down the road. It's a real shift in thinking, from problem to opportunity. And that could be pretty revolutionary. Could drive innovation, create jobs, maybe even lead to a more sustainable and prosperous future.
It's not just about cleaning up the mess, it's about creating something new and valuable from it.
Right. And that's what I find so exciting about this whole area. There are definitely challenges, but there's also this incredible potential.
Challenges and possibilities. I like that. It's a great note to end on. So to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive into the world of carbon capture has been, informative and thought-provoking.
And don't stop here. There's so much more to learn. Keep digging, keep asking questions, and keep your minds open to new possibilities.
Until next time, keep diving deep.